So are we streaming? I think we are.
Yep, we're live.
Okay, welcome everyone to the October edition of the Ask Me Anything panel discussion. Today we will be discussing scientists that have decided to move into a specialist role. Our panelists today are Ms. Stephanie Mabry, Ms. Stacey Robinson, and Ms. Christina Lim. I am going to let them actually introduce themselves so they can give a little background, and then basically we just let the questions drive the discussion. So take it away, ladies.
Okay, I'll get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and I'm a special instructor at Oakland University, where I'm currently teaching clinical microbiology and medical immunology. But prior to that, I was I still am actually working as a medical laboratory scientist in the microbiology lab, and currently I'm working at St. Joseph Mercy in Pontiac.
Hi, I am Stephanie Mabry. I am a visiting instructor at Oakland University, where I teach clinical chemistry, medical hematology, and hemostasis, as well as contemporary issues in healthcare. I also work part-time at Beaumont Royal Oak in the Metro Detroit area. I work as a medical laboratory scientist in the special chemistry and toxicology laboratory there.
And I'm Stacey Robinson. I'm the clinical microscopy supervisor at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. That's what we call our hematology section. And so I'm still maintaining all my competencies, still working the bench occasionally. And I have my specialist in hematology and a specialist in cytometry.
Thank you so very much, ladies. So this is the portion where the questions rule the day. So if you would like, you can put the questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question to the panelists. So who would like to start?
I should have mentioned, I think I forgot, I am a specialist in chemistry. That is my specialist certification. I guess that's pertinent to today's discussion.
I have a question. How did you guys decide what to specialize on? At what point of your career you made that decision?
For me, pursuing my specialist in chemistry was something that I always wanted to do. I had been working in chemistry, and so I knew I had a sound knowledge in chemistry, and I wanted to kind of prove to myself that I had that sort of additional level of knowledge. And the real push came when there was an opportunity to teach clinical chemistry at Oakland University. I felt that having the specialist certification was very important in demonstrating my knowledge and skill in that content area. So that's what gave me the final push to do it, although I had wanted to do it ever since I had really started working.
Yeah, so for myself, I have a specialist in microbiology, and microbiology has always been my favorite subject. So when I first got into the field of medical laboratory sciences, I was one of the main department that I worked in, and I got really, really good at it. And just after a few years of working on the bench and being proficient in all areas of the microbiology lab, which includes clinical bacteriology, parasitology, mycology, virology, molecular microbiology, and virology. I thought it was time to, hey, you know what, I know this so well, why not sit for the specialization exam? So that's what I did. And also being an instructor at Oakland University, it also helped me in that education pathway of my career.
For me, I was in the Army, and of course, you know, a young MLT in the Army, you come to a new hospital, it's like, oh, throw them in the core lab. But they kind of, it was easier to train people in chemistry, so I got kept stuck in chemistry for a time, but it was like, ooh, look, they're doing something really cool over on that next bench. Look at all the cells. And I really gravitated towards that and wanted to learn that because that was someplace that I could use my brain and I could deduce what was going on with the patient. And that interested me a lot more than just running the analyzer. And the bone marrow tech, who also counted bone marrows, was a specialist in hematology. So that is actually my first ASCP certification because that was what I wanted to be. The specialist in cytometry came later. When I started work at the hospital that I'm currently at, I had dabbled in flow a little bit, but they had a flow lab that they wanted to open. I was working on night shift and I was like, hey, do you mind if I go in there and tinker for a little bit? But I'm largely self-taught. And by the time that flow lab was ready to go live, it wasn't the specialist in cytometry at the time. It was the International Cytometry Certification Exam with ISAC and ICCS. And I took the exam because I wanted to reinforce, did I really know what the heck I was doing? So it did that.
Thank you so much. We do have some questions coming in the chat. So from Ms. Danielle Garcia, we have you found that the specialist certification has limited any opportunities for you?
I don't feel that way at all. I still have my generalist MLS certification, so I'm still qualified to work in any area. And so I don't see how demonstrating that I have additional knowledge in one specific area would preclude me from going to another area if I so chose. In fact, I think it would still be advantageous to show that, yeah, I can learn this material and I can be exceptionally competent in a given area. And so I have not felt that way at all.
Yes, and I'm just going to echo what Stephanie said in that, yes, I also have my MLS certification, so I could potentially work in other areas of the laboratory as well, chemistry, hematology. But like I said, once you've chosen your specialization, I think people who choose to go to take that are the ones who have sort of like stayed in maybe one area for a few years, got really, really good at it, and thought, okay, why not get certified? But it doesn't mean that we cannot work in other areas anymore.
I actually did take a position in a small clinical lab within a research institute as the technical supervisor for chemistry after my SH. And there were whispers that get around the rumor mill about overqualified, but they did hire me, and I am still adaptable. I still have my MLS.
Awesome. The next question from Robert is, what doors or opportunities opened up for you after receiving your specialist certification?
For me, it would be my career right now in education. So one of the reasons why I was first able to teach the laboratory components, for example, in our clinical laboratory science or now medical laboratory science program that we have at Oakland University, was because I have my specialist in microbiology. So even without my, even prior to me getting a graduate degree, for example, my master's degree, I had my SM to back me up. And that's how they knew that, okay, I'm really serious about this particular topic, this subject, I'm proficient in it. And so I'm qualified to teach our students that particular subject area. So in that way, my SM actually paved my career in education.
I'm also a very similar career path to Christina. So for me also, it was getting into education. I had heard that they were going to need somebody to teach this chemistry class at OU. And I said, I really want to do that. I'm going to get that specialist in chemistry certification to kind of add some oomph to my desire to teach that class. And I have taught that class. Now I'm in my third year teaching that clinical chemistry class. So it's really helped me get into education more. But also, while not leading to a new career necessarily, in my current job that I have as an MLS, I am trained to do certain tasks that staff level laboratorians typically aren't trained to do. Typically our technical director would do them, but I've been trained to take on some of those responsibilities because I have that specialist in chemistry. So it's not necessarily, I haven't applied for an upper level management job or director type of a job, but I've been trained to do those tasks. And so it has helped me gain additional experience that might be useful if somewhere down the line I were to pursue something higher up in the laboratory realm beyond outside of education, more actually in the laboratory.
I know that I've been asked to participate on different committees and things like that, and that has helped me networking wise because I am a specialist in hematology. I did for a while there actually sit on the heme exam committee, and that became about because I had my SH, and it's like, well, hey, look, you know, we could use somebody with an SH. It's not a requirement, but it is something they kind of look at. I don't know that it's really affected my selection for jobs or anything like that specifically. But I do know as somebody who's reviewing resumes, usually that person that took that time to learn their subject area more thoroughly and go ahead and take that next step is usually somebody that, like Stephanie, you can count on them to do some of those more technical tasks. You can really, you know, rely on them to step forward and things like that.
Thank you. I know that both Stacey and Stephanie kind of touched on this next question, but I wondered if maybe Christina had something specific. It says, do you feel you were chosen over other applicants due to your specialty certification?
Well, in terms of, I'm not really sure where this question is coming from. So if, for example, you're thinking about applying for just a medical laboratory science position, to be honest, right now, the job market, like they're looking for people right now. So it doesn't really matter whether you have a specialization or not, as long as you have a medical laboratory science degree, you will probably get a job. Okay, but I mean, it's true what Stacey and Stephanie said in that, like, in terms of when you are already in your position, you may get asked to do more things. You may be given more responsibilities, good responsibilities, just because they know that you are proficient in your area, you have passion for your, you know, for your subject, for your topic, and also that they can count on you. Like, you know, going through, you know, studying, taking the exam, the specialist exam, that kind of shows that you have that you have that drive to want to learn more, you know, to do things right. So they trust you with more responsibility. So in that sense, I think it's a good thing to have.
And a specific question for the specialist in hematology, what study materials would you recommend for the exam?
You know, I have to take you back to that reading list that is put out by ASCP, because those really are the textbooks that we're referencing, that you're referencing, that, you know, it all kind of ties into each other when we give you that practice survey and you go through and different labs say what they're doing, what they're not doing, what's important to know, you know, the theory behind what's fallen by the wayside. We take those surveys and we look at the results and we use that to develop the content outline. And then we're using the same books that you're using that are on that reading list that the instructors are using to teach. The instructors are using that content guideline to kind of inform, you know, the things that you know, our survey has said that you guys need to know. So it really is all there. My strategy for studying, I had worked bone marrow. I had done special stains. I had a little flow cytometry at that point in time. So I really just targeted my weak spot, which was coag. So I just grabbed one of the textbooks and I just sat there and I read all the chapters on coag, and that was my strategy. And it was a successful one for me.
Thank you so much. Andrea actually has dropped in the chat the ASCP.org content, like the study guides. If you're interested, you can go to that link and bookmark it for yourself. Any other questions that have percolated up? Please drop them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. All right, we have a question here from Christian. Are you familiar at all with the accredited SBB programs? And what might be the advantage of completing one of these formal specialist training programs versus qualifying to sit for the exam based on experience?
I do not have firsthand knowledge of the SBB programs, but I do know people who have gone through the accredited SBB programs. I can't say for sure that there's an advantage one way or another, but I do know that the people that I know who have gone through the accredited SBB programs are glad they went through a program. They're all highly skilled individuals. I think they probably would have been fine studying on their own as well. But I think there's probably something to that, just extra confidence that you've kind of been taught the things that are likely going to show up on that exam. But firsthand, I don't have that knowledge. That's just from people that I've spoken to.
Yeah, I don't have firsthand knowledge of SBB programs either, except that there is one at my facility. And I mean, if somebody's going to spend the better part of a year teaching you everything you need to know for that exam and to be proficient even after taking that exam, I would think that would be the way to go. I mean, unlike having an SH or an SCYM, the SBB, I mean, there's actually a career field out there that is looking for that specifically, that, you know, has that as a requirement for their job position. So if I could have that advantage of going through that course first, I think that's probably worth doing.
I have a quick question. If you were working as a generalist and, you know, you're kind of flipping around, I know Miss Stacey, you have 2 certifications, but say I'm a generalist and I really jam on blood bank and I really jam on hematology. Is it overkill to even consider both, or is it, you know, what's the drive? Is there any driving factor or anything that that you would say specifically to how to choose if you were kind of balancing a couple of them?
Well, I did choose both, but at least they're still kind of in alignment. I mean, I do my cytometry on hematopoietic cells. So for me, there isn't a divergence between the two. But I mean, even with those specialties, I still work in a core lab. So I still do, in the absence of the other supervisor, oversee chemistry. So some people like to take those additional certifications, but I don't know that there's any harm or necessarily any added value to doing it.
I know in my experience, which is in a large hospital laboratory, it would be very difficult to actually meet the work experience requirements in 2 areas in one position. In my laboratory, we work predominantly in chemistry or predominantly in hematology or predominantly in microbiology. And there might be a little bit of crossover, but somebody who works predominantly in chemistry would never meet enough experience areas to hit hematology. So I don't know if that would be different in a smaller laboratory, if a smaller laboratory would offer enough of the experience checklist items in multiple departments. But I know that's it's just an inherent limiting factor where I work. Is it would be very difficult actually for somebody without working multiple jobs to meet the experience for more than one certification.
Yeah, I agree. And even for me too, like I've worked in solely in microbiology for most of my career. I did a stint in stat lab for like a year and decided I like micro more. But but even for that, even for me being in micro full time and actually had a part-time job as well, it took me about 5-6 years to become proficient to all of the areas required for you to actually sit for the specialization exam. So if you go into the BOC website, they actually have a list of the areas that you're supposed to be proficient in, the content areas, how much of each content area you're supposed to know, procedures, analytical procedures, lab operations, that kind of stuff. And for microbiology, I mean, there's bacteriology, there's mycobacteriology for the acid fast, there's mycology, parasitology, virology. So you need to be proficient in, I believe, about 4 out of the 6 areas in microbiology. So in some areas, especially in a small lab, maybe they don't have those specialist areas. Maybe they don't have parasitology or mycology. So then you wouldn't have that kind of that content. So you may need to work in a lab that offers those content, so you can actually sit for the exam. So it's true what Stephanie said, that sometimes it's difficult to achieve all of the knowledge that you need to be able to be eligible to sit for the exam itself.
One career avenue where having multiple specialist certifications that I could see maybe being advantageous would be if somebody was interested in pursuing a career in education. For instance, I teach chemistry and hematology. Right now, I only have my specialist certification in chemistry. And so I feel it would be helpful to also pursue and obtain a specialist in hematology if I'm teaching that content area as well. And so if there is a desire to move into education where you likely will be responsible for being proficient in more than one content area, that's a career path where I think it would be advantageous to have more than one. But somebody who really likes blood bank and really likes heme and thinks they want to become a manager in one of those two, I mean, heme and blood bank still kind of go together, right? There's some coag overlap. But so there could be some advantages to getting both. It's just a matter of getting the experience and really kind of having an idea of where you do kind of want your career to go.
And maybe a good follow-on specialty would be you have your SC for X number of years, and then you moved up to management, and then you followed it up with like a DLM, something like that.
And another question, the ever famous, what's the pay bump or the advancement when you get that specialist?
Well, the truth is there is no pay bump. So you basically work with whatever pay range or pay scale that you have in whatever location that you're working in. So no, you don't get a pay bump just for getting your specialization. You get it for yourself, basically.
And that has been my experience as well. The difference would be if you were to use that specialist certification to pursue an advancement in your career, to pursue a promotion or a step up, it would translate to effectively maybe to a pay bump. Maybe you could negotiate a higher salary using that specialist certification, depending on where you're at. But inherently, if I'm staying in the same position, there's no pay bump just for sitting for the and passing the certification exam.
There's no pay bump in the government either. So about all I can do is make my resume look a little shinier when I apply for that next level position or something, but that's it. Or if I did go for a senior medical technologist in, say flow cytometry or coag or something, the SH would help me look a little nicer, but that's about it.
We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Does anybody have a burning question? Throw it in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, so how long did you have to study before you took your exam?
I am probably an anomaly on this because I tend to, I'm very nervous about things, I tend to just decide I'm going to do them and then I just do them and see what happens. And so I decided one day that, yeah, I was going to sit for the specialist in chemistry exam. And I think I scheduled it for about a month out. And I studied for about a month. And I did very similar to what Stacey said. I looked up the content outline on the BOC website. And I actually kind of typed up my own outline of what that content was using the reading list from the BOC website. And so I had a packet of like 30 pages of bullet point notes. And I studied that for probably about a month and then took the exam. But I just kind of did it on a whim, and I just decided if I didn't pass the first time, I just wouldn't tell anybody that I had done it. And I would study longer for the second one. That was my story.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really spend much time studying either. I think I may have flipped through my my college book, but yeah, I just decided one day that I wanted to sit for the exam, and I didn't want to stress out too much about it, so I just took it right away. I think within 3 weeks of registering for the exam. But you know what? When you decide, once you're actually eligible to sit for the exam, you would have been working for a period of time already in that job, in that particular, you know, department or that subject area that you're taking the exam on, that you would know the material already. Right. So in fact, you cannot study for absolutely everything that is on the exam content just from a book. You have to draw from your own experience. So having that work experience actually matters a lot by the time that you sit for your specialist exam.
Yeah, I agree with Christina. Basically, by the time it was time to take the exam, I had the right experience in all, you know, most of the right areas, and I just focused on what I didn't. So it was probably 3 or 4 weeks out that I signed up for the exam, and I literally read a few chapters on coag and went and took it. And I had it. Like she said, if you have the experience, you probably have most of that exam.
That is wonderful, ladies. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our brief time has come to a close. Do you have any final remarks that you would like to give anyone or tell anyone that is considering going on to have a specialist certification?
Well, if you're in this AMA, so that tells me that you're already, you know, like 2 steps ahead, you're serious about it, you're thinking about it, I'd say just go for it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're even considering taking a specialist in certification, I think that you should. We in the laboratory, we all know amongst ourselves that we are the holders of vast knowledge. We know so much. Why not put those letters behind your name that prove it to the world?
Yeah, just rip off the Band-Aid and go for it. And you know, a certain amount of extra initials after your name does look good, and it does kind of say that, hey, look, you took the extra time and dove a little deeper.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much, ladies. And I hope you have a good rest of your evening. Thank you for donating time to educate us on your passions and your experiences as a specialist in this wonderful field.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.